a little while ago I did a test and I used a piece of polystyrene, and the test wasn't so much to do what I knew it would already do, which was to melt the foam out and replace it with the aluminium. It was more a matter of to see what degree of detail I could actually get in the foam itself. And you can see there where I've just carved a little bit of a pattern. I did that with the end of a soldering iron just to see what sort of degree of pattern could be carved into the foam and would transfer when the hot metal vaporized out the foam. And what I was actually most impressed with was not the actual little test bits that I did myself, but the actual detail of the polystyrene itself. All the little bubbles, all the little depressions and all that sort of stuff transferred out of the foam. You can even see the circular parts that make up the individual beads of the polystyrene. So that showed me two things. Number one, that the polystyrene didn't have enough surface detail to pick up the details that I wanted, and that the metal itself would transfer the details that I wanted to into it. So I moved over to using some insulation foam and found that the melt was the same, that would vaporize out pretty much the same way. The big difference is that this can be sanded to a point where it's very, very smooth, and then that I can transfer details into the foam. So the experiment I'm doing today is less about melting the foam and more about whether or not it would really actually pick up those details so that I can incorporate it in the next project that I'm going to do. So I'm very close to getting ready to pour this out, and I thought I'd give you a quick tip if you're doing anything like this yourself, and how to actually gauge the temperature on whether or not the metal is actually at the right temperature. The meniscus, or the surface tension of the liquid, can actually help you gauge whether or not the temperature is right and whether or not the metal is ready to pour out. If you have a look at that there now, that's at about the correct pouring temperature. If the surface tension is domed, that is to say, if you can see the edge there where the surface is domed, that means generally that the liquid's too cold and it's not ready for pouring. If it's concave, where it goes the other way, that means the liquid's too hot and it's likely that it'll burn the interior of your mould and you'll have wrinkling issues on the surface of your pieces. So what you're looking for is to try and get it at that level stage. If you wipe the edge like that and it falls back to a level point, you can see how that's quite level there now. That tells me that the metal's at a point where it's ready to be poured. Looks like it's worked. Right, so that experiment has actually taught me quite a bit. The way the metal was poured in was that way, so the metal comes straight down in and flooded through. I've put that little piece there purely as an expansion test to see if the metal would fill the void in an upward position, and it has done. There hasn't been any loss of detail in that either. The other thing that I've learnt from this is the bottom part of the pattern has come out really clear. It's very nice and sharp, and that should polish up without any major issues. But the side piece here hasn't come out very well. The framing of it has come out really well, but the inner part of the pattern, of the Celtic sort of pattern, hasn't come out very well. I suspected that would be the case, so to actually test whether or not it had to do anything to do with it, I put another piece on the inside, and that piece has come out quite clear. So what that tells me is that it's got less to do with the vertical access of it and more to do with how well the sand is packed around it. To ensure that it's less of an issue though, when I put it in the mould next time round, what I'll do is make sure that the piece is set into the sand on that sort of triangular sort of shape, so that I have less vertical packing issues as far as the detail of the sand is concerned. But all in all, fairly successful test. The bevel edge test pieces and that sort of stuff have picked up the detail really nicely. I might just give that a quick sand and clean up to see what it's going to look like from a polished point of view. So after I've given that a bit of a sand and a clean up, I've just hit it on the polishing buff. I haven't spent a lot of time on it, but you can see with a little bit more work that would actually come up really nice and bright. And the detail's been retained really nicely in that as well. And if you recognise that pattern, you've probably got a pretty good idea of one of the projects I've got coming up.